Hey everybody, it's Deanna and I've got Dennis. Am I going the right way? Yep, I've got Dennis over here. I know, I'm like, which way? We are, first off, welcome to 2021, but we are doing a he said, she said. Now, if you have followed either myself or Dennis or both of us over the past, I don't know how many years, we've always talked about doing a he said, she said because A, we're in the same industry. B, there's several things that overlap with both of us, and C, we don't agree on everything. We and we're not afraid to say that to each other that we don't agree. But one way isn't right or wrong. We just bring different perspectives, and so we thought let's go live and talk about the things that we typically talk about behind the scenes anyhow, but share those conversations with you and feel free to jump in, right? We want to see your comments. We want to see, we don't want to see who you side with, but feel free to who you side with. We're cool with a little debate.
Hey, this thing never got up off the ground because you overthought it in the first place. So let's just
I
be
think that was you
completely
that
honest
overthought
and transparent.
I
And,
think no.
and you started right away with this one where I started getting emails and questions. It started out with, hey, let's just keep it simple. And then next thing you know, Deanna had a bunch of questions to work through. And I was like, what happened to keeping it easy and simple and just going live? But in any case,
well, here we are, right? We're going live.
how's that for the start?
I see your wife in the background.
Throwing you right under the bus from minute number one.
Totally used to it. Nothing new, but no. But I do have a tendency to overthink and plan a little bit more than Dennis does, and that's okay. But now we're doing it. We're just jumping in. So roll with us while we talk about this. But we did decide on a topic, and God only knows what viewpoints we're both going to have on it. But we thought it was Dennis actually came up with the idea of talking about goal planning. Right? It's 2021, it's beginning of the year. This is the time when everybody starts making their goals, whatever it may be, right? And a lot of people, especially with COVID, I've noticed a lot of people are just making the decision to become entrepreneurs, right? They're jumping ship. They're like, or they got laid off, unfortunately, or their business closed, or so many different scenarios that I've run across, right? And they're like, you know what? I'm going to give this a shot. I've always had a dream. I've always thought about starting a business, and now I'm put in this position that maybe I will do it. Have you been seeing a lot of that too, Dennis?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I don't know if this was a compliment or what it was, but like a few years ago, somebody came up to me and they were like, I don't know if it was like the inspiration moment or if it was like the backhanded compliment. They're like, we saw that you did it. And so it felt like I could do it. And I was like, what does that mean? Is that like, did I inspire them? Or they're like, I'm an idiot, so they can figure out, like, if I can figure it out, anybody can figure it out mentality. But I do think that this is a big jumping off point. If you didn't do it in the previous recession when when there was a lot of job loss, unemployment, now obviously has been a time for people to kind of get a running start. They got a little bit of maybe stimulus money. They got some severance package, whatever it is, unemployment. And it is that prime opportunity to get a little bit of a runway. And I think one of the scariest things is, where's the money going to come from? How are you going to feed the family, pay the bills, that sort of thing. So if you got some of that runway, then I do think that it's an opportunity that I see a lot of people. One of the things that I find interesting, that I'm so glad I'm in the position that I'm in, is that when I look on LinkedIn with my connections, and we are LinkedIn Live, by the way, as well, is that I see these job runs from former colleagues of mine when I was in corporate America or even small businesses working in sales and marketing, that they've got 1, 2, 3-year runs with companies. And I just couldn't imagine at this point, like every 1 to 3 years, like switching a company or a job because my employer forced me a better opportunity. And I'm like, I'm really glad that I spent the time working on my business and growing my business over the past decade. than one every 3 years, like kind of making that job switch because the situation presented itself the way that it did.
Yeah. I completely agree. And I mean, entrepreneurship, we both are in it. We're both in it 100%. And even before we were actually entrepreneurs, we were still entrepreneurs, right? I would imagine you were very similar to me, Dennis, like being a kid, selling whatever, coming up with ways to make a couple bucks, right? Thinking outside the box, trying to come up with stuff. It's not for everybody because it is not easy. It's, you know, my husband, for example, he likes that he goes to work. He can leave his work at work,
Right.
punches a clock. He knows what he's going to make every single week, every single month. For me, I don't like knowing that somebody else has control of my future. If I fail, that failure is on me. And I'm the one who's looking in the mirror, right? Where although COVID, let me take that back. I've always said that, but COVID, there's a lot of people who are unfortunately their doors are closing and it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with government shutting it down, right?
Look, yeah, and I have some very strong opinions on the fact that in a situation in a regulated environment, that if you're not allowed to conduct business, then those people that are making those decisions for you, and obviously it's the government at this particular point, and I understand why and all the things that are wrapped around it, but they should obviously be doing something on a consistent basis besides just something like $600. I mean,
I agree.
and so, that's one of it. And look, we were in a position this year where my business took about a 70% hit in 2020. And, this conversation is kind of revolving around goal planning, goal setting. How do you start the year? How do you plan the year? Quarter by quarter. And I think that it's funny is that back in early December, I had somebody on and we were talking about, they're like very focused in their goal planning and their tactical thing and their marketing plan for the month, the quarter, the year. And I said, I know it seems like sometimes I'm throwing things at the wall but we're kind of in that agile planning stage with my business where like it is month by month, quarter by quarter, some longer term goals, but we're willing to switch and quickly. But here's what happened in 2020 to those planners is that it's kind of like the old Mike Tyson statement is that, everybody had a plan when they walked in the ring with Mike Tyson, then they got punched in the face. And everybody had a plan walking into 2020 about how the world was going to shake out for them. And then COVID hit and they got punched in the face, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so if you planned out a year, you very rapidly had to pivot to figure out how's this going to work.
Yeah. And I don't plan out a year. I do plan out 3 months ahead, right? I mean, I have my big picture goal of what I want to do.
Is that a revenue goal?
Yeah. Well, everything, right? Revenue goal obviously is longer term. However, there's shorter mini goals within that longer goal so that you have the ability to shift when you need to shift, right? Because a lot of the times we're learning. And we're going to talk about some ways that we sabotage those goals. So this is kind of a cool way to lead into that because there are times that I've sabotaged my own goals, right? I've gotten my own way and had to rethink what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And then there are other times that something outside of me sabotages those goals or creates a shift, maybe not sabotage, but creates a shift in how I'm doing things. And so you have to just adjust, especially with what we do, being entrepreneurs. Nothing is ever the same. There's always some sort of change happening. But let's talk about, have you ever sabotaged yourself?
So, consciously or subconsciously?
I think most of the time it's subconsciously that we do it.
That's a tough thing that I don't know that I've been afraid. It's interesting. Like you're not afraid. Like I wasn't afraid to step out into running my own business when I brought my third kid home from the hospital, fired my boss in corporate America, cushy. I wasn't cushy. I mean, we worked a lot of hours, but like very good salary, pension, like who has a pension, internal stock options, American Express corporate card, like, you name it. Like it was a good getting, but you never knew when you were going to get let go either. And so from that perspective, I didn't. But one of the things I talk about is like a lot of times the biggest risk that anybody takes is the day that they start that business and then they stop taking the risks after that to invest further into their business. So I think that that's a way of like falling back into that safety net, or if you want to call it sabotage, you can. Um, I've had pressures, with some of the things that I do are very publicly facing. So if a client ends up falling on their face and we have failures, which we do, you never know about it. But if, some of the things that I've done, they have that. So I put additional pressures on myself. And I think that this past year was like, as oddly as it is, like, again, COVID hit us with like 70% of my revenue was impacted this year. But
Yeah.
in the same note, we still had 30% of the revenue coming in, and the consulting business did fine, and it kept us afloat. And the relief and the pressure to actually enjoy my summer and my day to day without these like crazy deadlines of a big event or a print publication meeting deadline, it was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Like it was like, so I don't know if that's self-sabotage, but like I'm like,
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think stopping, actually, ironically, right, a form of sabotage. Well, it's not sabotaging, but one form of sabotage is that I've been guilty of. I'm gonna believe that, Dennis, you've been guilty of this too. It's not stopping and taking time off for ourselves. That is a type of self-sabotage, because we do have to hit that reset button and we do have to sleep. And when you're an entrepreneur, especially in those early years, like, I don't know, like, I felt guilty about taking time off. When I go on vacation, my laptop's with me, because it has to be, but just in case the world blows up. And I might be a little bit of a control freak to leave it in the hands of someone else, but I'm improving on that. But just taking that time off is a form of self-sabotage. So
I think that that's somewhat of a well, at the latter of it, it becomes a burnout
yes,
situation where you can't think, you can't work, you don't get things done. And early on, I was not good at taking time off. I would always stop to be dad. Like my kids needed me between like the hours of 4 and 8, and but then come evening, like work yourself into the ground late at night, and then the weekend, and then half a day on Friday was until 4, and then a half a day on Saturday was till noon. And now I've actually gotten really good about like shutting down, come Fridays, and just really not worrying about it unless I get that text or email from a client that's like, hey, the world's burning down around us.
save us.
We've got our first question or comment from a very excited listener. It is on Facebook. You just didn't get the notification. So Luke Schuster.
Oh, it is on Facebook. You know what? It's on my personal business profile, or my personal profile.
It's actually on my profile and
Is
on my
it?
business page as well. Yeah.
It's on, yeah, my page too.
But I don't know, like self-sabotage, I think, is afraid of like success, and like, or maybe you've had some weird conditioned things in your life that you don't know what like good love is versus bad love. So like you only know how to respond to like the abuse situation, right? So like,
Yeah.
or you failed so many times. Um, I don't know, like, is it also like, I feel like this weird sense of like public pushback of there's something bad about making money from time to time, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then like,
Yeah.
why is that a bad thing? So I feel like, is that some of the sabotage that you've seen your own clients be afraid of the success?
Yes. Now, I haven't really seen my clients, and I don't know if that's really something that we openly talk about with other people, right? Oh, thanks, Luke. But you know what? It is a fear of failure, and that does stop us. I was talking to a client earlier today, and we were talking about failure, right? And for years, through middle school and high school, I was afraid of failing. So there were things that I may have been interested in doing or trying, but I wouldn't try it if I didn't have confidence that I would be really, really good at it. So I just chose not to do it. Looking back now at 50, right? Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that. But looking back now, um, I wish I would have, right? I wish I would have like overcame that fear years ago because I missed a lot of opportunities. And I probably wasn't until I was in my 30s when that fear of failure kind of like went away, and now I'm okay with failing.
Like that was like a big motivating factor for like Michael Jordan, right? Like his fear of failure. And I think that like when you start on a weight loss program or you're going to run a marathon, they're like, make it publicly known. So then it kind of forces and motivates you, along the way. And like I've run a lot of marathons, not metaphorically, but actually physically ran marathons. And whether I broke my time record that I set as a goal or I didn't, I maybe, deep down in, the marketing conference that I created was kind of multifaceted, kind of by on accident that, there's a revitalization movement going on in the town that we're in. And I didn't exactly know where my place was when I moved back to this area after being out of it for 21 years of my contributions to that revitalization. And I felt like that was kind of like, hey, if I could teach others what I know about sales and marketing, maybe that's a win.
Yeah.
And the other goals that came along with that of like, maybe it generates some leads for my business, whatever. But that put me in a position that I either succeeded or publicly failed and would fail like very miserably.
Yeah.
And
you're out there like everybody. If you did, everybody.
Right. And I think, so, and I look at like a lot of people in the marketing world that like, if they have a big failure, like you never really know it. Early on in my career, I have a funny story. Like I was my first job, mid-sized company. I got promoted to the director of marketing of the region pretty quickly. And we were a mobile MRI company over 4 states. And I had to grow the department of marketing reps in each state. But then we started to develop fixed imaging centers. And I had to develop all the branding and marketing strategy. And that included signage for the company. And so I got this sign made and then we put it up and some guy's standing out there and he's like, something's wrong with that sign. And there was no misspellings. It's just the way that it looked. It looked like it was a big O. And I became known as like the sign. Oh, you were that sign guy that messed up that $5,000 sign.
Great.
Right. I was like, well, at least you remember me. But like,
yeah.
I don't know if that's a failure. I didn't set out to obviously fail in that environment. But
Right.
like when you do something like that, obviously nobody in the general public knew who screwed that sign up. Matter of fact, the sign company probably got the blame. So what my point is, like when you generally see bad marketing that's out there, maybe an agency's behind it, but you don't know that.
Right.
Like right now, you don't know if like one of my clients has bad marketing.
Yeah.
But you sure damn well know as if like, the marketing conference flops.
Right.
But I don't know that like I've self-sabotaged. I think we've had major issues with scalability and growth and trying to figure out who we are. But I don't know that like that's been as a result of like trying to self-inflict that wound, unless you like kind of really dig in and be like, founder syndrome. Nobody can do it as best as I can.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do believe that you're getting in your own way. Now, you know me, right? I dig deep and I'm not pinpointing you because I don't know all the details, right? I'm just saying in general, this is just the way that we all do. We all get in our own way with goals. But there's something that when I'm working with people on how to reach their goals, right? When we are at a point where we're starting to change, right? And we can put it in the business sense, but let's just do, because the two biggest goals that people make in the beginning of the new year are what? Weight loss and money. We're all going to lose a lot of weight. We're all going to make a lot of money. Like, those are the two most popular goals. So we'll do weight loss, right? So even if, you make a plan to lose weight in the beginning of the year and you make those changes, you get to a point that's uncomfortable, right? And when it's uncomfortable, even though your habits are bad where they were, you will go back to those bad habits because they're comfortable. So let's put it over to a business sense, right? So maybe we form some habits of productivity, right? Or maybe, we procrastinate. We put things off, right? That's a form of self-sabotaging ourselves. So let's just say that maybe this year we're like, you know what, I'm not going to procrastinate. I'm going to get things done. I'm going to be ahead of schedule. I'm going to be on the ball. And then life happens, right? And things that were a priority go back onto the back burner. And now, because it's comfortable, because we know we can handle that later, right? But we're going back to our own ways and they're comfortable. So that's a form of self-sabotage. It doesn't have to be self-sabotaging yourself in business or in life. Doesn't have to be like something terrible. It could just be these small little actions that we're doing.
But is that I think that there's something different there. I think you're describing something that's a habit and a bad habit versus saying that I don't want to embrace success purposely. Sabotage is, I don't know what the is by definition, but it feels like sabotage is like a self-inflicted, like, I'm purposely not going to do this, so I'm right. And
I don't think that sabotage is a or like it's a conscious decision. I think that we don't always do it on purpose. I think a lot of times we don't realize it. I don't know. What does everybody else think? Who do you side with? Me or Dennis? Like, I think a lot of times that we sabotage ourselves without realizing that we're even doing it. We still want success. We still want to hit that goal. We still want to be successful in whatever we're aiming for, but we go back to what's comfortable. Either it's a bad habit, or maybe it is imposter syndrome, or maybe it is the fear of failing, which is something that we're able to at least recognize a little bit more. But sometimes it might be those little habits that we go back to that are stopping us from that success.
so then you don't want success?
No, you do want success.
So,
You do want it, but you're not aware that you are blocking yourself.
huh.
You don't agree with me, do you?
No. No. I think that there's some of the, again, I think kind of sabotage comes down to something being purposeful. And maybe something in your subconscious is like, I really don't want this. Like, I don't want like, there's a lot of people on the PGA Tour, for example, that you don't know that make $500,000 a year. Like, you would not know them if you walked into a bar or restaurant today. They could be sitting right next to you, pro golfer, and they're completely happy with just maintaining a lifestyle on tour, coming in, making the cut every week, 25 to 50 top golfers in the world, right? And they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they also don't want to be in that top 5 or 10 because what comes along with that success is fame. So now you're now at the same restaurant or bar and you have to deal with a bunch of people interrupting your experience. And so that comes with a price. And do you want that? And so there are people that are purposefully on the PGA Tour that don't necessarily strive to be in that upper echelon, but are comfortable just making the living.
But maybe their success is that comfortable living. Your success for them is to hit number one. Maybe that's not. Maybe it is to be in that comfortable space, to have that balance, right? So you can't put what you think their success is on them. Maybe they hit it.
Yeah, and so that's also, I think, a good point is that it comes back to like, what's your goal? Like
Yeah.
people, again, like people like kind of from the outside in, like look at maybe, the conference and they're like, oh, he should have 1,000 people there. Well, maybe that wasn't maybe that is this going to be a PG or PG-13 or radar? Maybe that isn't the effing goal. Maybe the goal
I
isn't
say whatever you
1,000
want to
people,
say.
right?
This is your LinkedIn profile and my Facebook, so you're
Oh, the LinkedIn police will be out. I'll get kicked off. I just got awarded my live, the first one in the Youngstown area to get awarded the live.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm throwing
So,
shots now.
so
Um,
Luke
so
asked a really great question. He said, "How do I know if I am sabotaging myself?"
well,
And
that comes down to the conscious and subconscious.
go ahead, continue. I don't know if I agree with you with that statement, but go ahead. That's okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, are you subconsciously trying to sabotage yourself, like because you don't want to, like you want to have an excuse as to why you didn't hit your number, or um, why your business didn't grow, and you don't want to embrace that whatever it is that you set out as the goal.
So then, if I'm understanding you correctly, your viewpoint to his answer is that deep inside, you really don't want to hit that goal.
Yeah, you got to figure out like why did you sleep in, drink too much? What's the excuse? You
Okay.
know, right?
Yeah. I don't totally agree with you. I agree with you. I do. I do agree that that is one way to know. Like there are people that they are afraid of success. I get it. I buy into that. Um, but I also think that there are other things where they do want to be successful and they don't realize that, they want that success, but they don't realize they're getting in their own way. Have you ever had it like imposter syndrome? 'Cause I've had it a lot. So imposter syndrome, I'm laughing at what Luke commented.
Well, I'll jump in here with this, and I'll tell you
Go
right
ahead.
now, it's fact checking yourself and self awareness, and you
Okay.
have to be completely honest with yourself and be completely self aware to know that that's how you're, if you want to call it, sabotaging or just falling short of whatever the goals you set for yourself. I believe that you got to be completely honest and self-aware. You got to fact check, and if you can't be that individual, you have to surround yourself with an individual or individuals that are willing to be really freaking honest with you, right? So
I
like I
yeah,
know last summer, like I didn't have this expansive growth, and I'm being real honest with myself, is because I really enjoyed my time with my kids.
but that's your success. I can say the same about my success. My success to me is not making $1 trillion, right? I mean, that would be great, but I like the balance of being able to get away when I want to
So,
get away. And my kids were the reason, my both of my boys were the reason that I stepped out in this, and it was to spend more time with them. So that the freedom to me is more success than the dollar amount.
so remind me again, what's imposter syndrome?
So imposter syndrome is basically when you really question yourself, right? And I've had it a lot. I've had it a ton of times. I'll probably continue to have it, but you're like, "Oh my god, what am I doing? Like, do I even know what I'm talking about? Why do these people trust me to do this? Like, I'm an imposter. I don't know as much as I know, and they're going to see right through me, right?" And this happens a lot, mainly with women. Men also will experience this, but it's very common with women to go through this imposter syndrome and have all this self-doubt. I know you're looking at me, right? And I get it. It's totally cool. And I don't know if there's any other women listening right now, but if you are, save me on this. But
Here comes my caveman tendencies to come out. Go ahead, continue.
it's true. A lot of women experience this where you feel like you are an imposter. Like you
Not
don't
adequate.
know. Pardon me?
Not adequate.
Right. Just you don't know enough, right? And that people will see through that. But uh, but you got to get a grip on yourself, right? And then you realize what you do.
I personally think so. This is the first. Now we've had you and I have been on one another's podcasts in the past, and we actually even dabbled with the he said, she said. We're officially giving this a go. I think that there's a lot of times that there's a generalization towards the women, female discussion of, right, of like men don't feel this way, because I personally never feel like I know enough. Now, the words expert, guru, I don't know what the other words are that typically
I'm
get
trying
thrown
to think
around
too.
with
Yeah,
my introductions, right? And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm worthy, and I don't feel like I'm adequate. I feel like when I do walk in a room full of experts, that the conversation gets a lot more difficult than when I'm talking to somebody that has no idea what the hell I'm talking about. So
yeah,
like,
sure. Yeah,
I never
of course they
feel,
do.
I always feel like there's more for me and to understand, learn, know, grow, right? So I feel at times, I'll call it, maybe it is a lack of confidence in that depth, but I always revert back to the results, right? It's a body of work there's results that have been there. So tactically, you and I could get into a very nerdy SEO conversation or Facebook, and have disagreements on how to approach it, right? And there's always somebody in the room that's going to disagree with you, and you're like, oh, well, that's not how we approach SEO. That's not the right way, right? Well, we got results. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, I don't know exactly what you know or how you know it, or maybe the depth of what you know it.
Right.
So I don't know. Like, I fully can buy into the he said, she said of imposters just being a female only game.
No. It's not only female. It's not only female, but traditionally females experience it more. Or maybe women are more likely to own it and say,
Maybe I'm more in touch with my feminine side.
maybe you are, Dennis. I
But
mean,
here's what I find. Here's what I find. So we can. I find, and I feel like this is ego, and
okay.
this is probably going to get me a lot of trouble day one.
So
Right?
it's new.
So always willing to admit fault. I feel like females have a bigger ego and the need to be right, when men typically get the ego label, right?
I'm saying right, and I'm listening to you. Not that I agree with you.
Not that you agree with me.
I do not agree with you at all. No, not at all. I don't think that women have a bigger ego than men. I think we all have egos on some level, right? I think in my experience, and again, maybe it's because when I talk to a man, I have to work a lot harder to prove myself to them than I do a woman. Men will instantly talk down. Now, that's fading as my credibility has increased over the years, right? But talking to a man in a business world, they will typically talk down to me like I know nothing at all, like absolutely nothing. So I think their egos are
I'm
bigger.
sorry. Like, I do understand that there's
It's
still.
terrible.
I
Ask me
do
why. I'm
understand that
sure
there's
she would.
still a school of men that live in that. I've never watched Mad Men. I've maybe a half of one episode, but there's still men that live in that same mentality.
Yes.
I don't know. Like, I've just surrounded myself, like in our business, with, I think that 70% of the contributors, have been female and have had diverse backgrounds. So like, we don't do it by that's just what we've done. And it's like, it's always been very comfortable. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I maybe it's just because of the fact that I haven't won an argument in my house in 16 years.
It could be, Dennis. It could be. And you know what though, but and I don't know what that answer is, to be honest with you. I think it's just perception, right? But in your defense, you do have a lot of women speak at the conference. And the women that you bring to the conference are confident, strong women. So, a lot of times, maybe, and I may be guilty of this too, we come across maybe a little bit stronger, like, just kind of buckling down, like we're not budging because we're so used to that resistance.
Yeah, but I think that the tendency is also to overcompensate. And I can tell you that the people that I've had that are part of that typically aren't of that personality trait. They're very comfortable and confident in their skin. They don't have a need to overcompensate. So it's always kind of, I don't know. I don't know how that works out. I don't know if that's the vibe that I put off that pulls it back in.
Yeah. No, you're pretty chill. You don't come out. I mean, you and I hit it off.
Well, I don't have the need to be right. I always have the need to advance the business agenda, and whatever that takes for me to do that. And yes, I feel like there's give and takes in it, but like I'm about like what's in the best interest of the business. And so what is it going to take to advance that agenda? And let me figure out where you're coming from and how I can make that fit into what I think is the best for all of us. As opposed to it's my way and this is how we are going to do it.
I love it. Yes, I agree with you 100%. And I think that the people that do that, right, that it's my way, no way, they don't have the ability or they don't have the desire. We all have the ability to listen to somebody else's perspective and try to add to it, right? But the ones who somebody may give an idea and somebody's just very quick to shoot it down because it goes against their idea instead of add to it, that to me is another form of sabotaging.
All right, so let's talk about goals.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
So you do vision boards and like, have you so when you plan out a goal, are you planning out goals, have you planned your 2021 year of dominance yet?
My year of dominance, I have. And and it's also holding my breath because I have no idea what COVID is going to do this year too. But no, of course, I've come up with my goal, my agenda. And again, like the big picture I will do for the whole year, but the smaller to-dos, I call it my to-do list, right?
Ta-da.
Ta-da. It's a ta-da. Like, so I will break it down, the big goal, to what do I need to do to get there, right? But I only plan the first 3 months. And then within those 3 months, I organize the tasks of what I need to do to reach it in that mini goal. Those tasks are my to-do list. So I write those in my planner. I make sure that I get it done. I stay focused. Like I love goals, right? So even my planner has my goal for the week, right, written in there. Did I accomplish it? It has little boxes in there that says, what habits am I trying to change? And each day I can mark to see if I'm making the change in that habit. So yes, to answer that, I have. I have not finished my vision board though, truth be told, but the goal planning and the writing down and the strategizing I have my little big chalkboard over here. It's like the length of the wall that I write stuff on too.
And you look at it daily?
Yeah, I do it daily. Something daily to improve my business.
I said that back in November, I was going to wake up and listen to a podcast every day. That was going to take time for me when I got my kids up for school, and then I got them off to school. I'd take a half hour, and that lasted like 3 podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very encouragingly enthusiastic about the gains that I made in those 3 days.
And then why did you stop?
Self-sabotage.
Well, I mean, maybe.
I don't know. I just wasn't that interested. Like, I don't know. Like,
it didn't really serve you well.
Like Marky Mark goes to bed, wakes up at 3:30 in the morning every day. He gets his workout in. Like, I know he's got an army of people that's helping him with his kids, but like, you see these people on LinkedIn that like, I'm up at 5 o'clock every day. I meditate for 5 minutes. I read my self-help book, and then I'm into my exercise. I go do my CrossFit routine. I come home, eat a smoothie. I'm off onto my work day. I'm like, that is like, I'm like, what a loser.
Yeah. Like I showered. Right.
So for me, I haven't been a big, big picture goal person. And what's really odd about it is that I get asked about my goals. Probably, I don't know if like people wake up in the morning and like, hey, Deanna, like, what's your goal with, your business this year? You get that? You
No.
get that question?
Nobody ever
I
asked what my goal is for my business this year, but it's none of their business what my goal is. It's my business to know what my goal is.
Okay, well,
It's
I
not
get that.
theirs.
I get that question, and I would say 80% of the meetings that I walk into.
What is your personal goal?
It's like yeah. So
Why
yeah,
does that matter?
I don't know. Maybe it's because
I
like
would make up something absolutely ridiculous and tell them, like something shocking.
yeah, but you know what? A few years back, like I did realize, like I mean, like okay, when I was 12 or 13, I decided I knew I wanted to play college basketball. Right, so that was like the goal. That was it. I want to play college basketball. And I knew to get there at 12 or 13, I had to pick up a basketball every day of my life and do something that was going to get me closer to that goal. So that's what I did. Like it was just that simple. Like I didn't.
Yeah.
And so then like maybe as I got in the high school, I got more detailed with like maybe the workout plan, but it was just pick up a basketball every day and dribble it for even 5 minutes. Because every day that right? And Kobe Bryant didn't, he 1,000 jump shots a day, not for this season, but for 15 years in that was what, he was kind of planning for. So I do get the macro goal. And so 3 years ago, I started to devise the 3 businesses that I have and to say, like, here's what I want in revenue from each one of these businesses. And it's a good thing I did that because forward thinking 3 years into the future, when we did get hit, and it was a tremendous amount of work to run 3 businesses with a very small, like me, my wife, Joanna, and a handful of 1099 freelance people over the years, is that when those 2 businesses were impacted this year, I had at least the one business to fall back on, right?
Right.
But I did start to establish revenue goals for those businesses individually that would collectively say, here's where I'm comfortable. Here's what I want to grow the business to. The conference wise has never really been a revenue goal. It's never been a head count. It's always been deliver an amazing experience, deliver something that people want to walk away with and implement in their business that day. And number 3, create an environment where people are going to network with each other, that they now have a friend that they can call on to do business with, get coffee with, or just a sounding board, right? And so you've got relationships as a result of the conference.
Sure. Absolutely.
You've learned things. So like we and I feel like if we establish those goals, then the numbers goals will kind of take care of themselves. Fast forward to right now, I've purposely set out to say like more corporate minded, if you will. Like when I carried a bag with a, corporate environment, I had a $5 million quota with GE Healthcare. Like go hit your number or there's the door. And you didn't get paid much on that $5 million quota, by the way. It was like a 0.1% of your revenue. But every week your funnel scrub added up to the micro to the macro. And I'm really taking that approach this year to say, here's where my revenue goal is for this year. And I want to retain all my clients. I'm not really too concerned about upselling my existing client base. I don't want to do that. But I want to increase the net new growth. And here's what I'm holding myself accountable to from a revenue perspective every month moving forward in 2021. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't align with the conference or the print publication, we'll set those 2 things aside. We'll do a smaller version of that. Maybe it'll be by chance, but I'll be very purposeful this year. And this is where this is it. This is every day, right?
Okay.
Checking boxes. Did I get this accomplished or not? And then, where does it shake out at the end of the week?
Yep. Yeah, same thing here. I just have it in a planner with my little boxes.
Actually, typically it's a blank sheet of paper, and then it just kind of like it just
Yeah,
spawns from there. That's how it, and it's a big stack.
right.
There
But
was a
writing
there was a board in my office until the other day, and then somebody decided to rearrange it on. They hit it. But that typically that board has on that board it has current client monthly reoccurring revenue, and then it has the funnel. It has here's the projected, here's the percentage of close rate, and like that's how I'm really methodically approaching it this year.
yeah. I have something similar in Airtable. And that goes back to my corporate days as well, where, I pull that over into here, what I've learned, and track it that way. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that self-awareness, that self-discipline is like if that podcast isn't going to be something that helps me get to that revenue goal for the month, then I have to question myself, why am I wasting my time listening to that?
hmm But don't you think that maybe some things, maybe that podcast, um, maybe it's not a short term, right? But you're getting little nuggets of things that will help your business. And I don't know what podcast you were listening to. I mean, if it wasn't, if it was like, who's that guy, that Jim? Oh my gosh. And if my kids are watching this right now, they would be appalled that I can't say his name or don't know his name. Do you know who I'm talking about with the podcast? He just went over to Spotify. Come on, somebody help me.
Joe Rogan.
Yes. Joe Rogan. Yes, because I heard he was in Youngstown. I think he was in Youngstown. My kids were going to go see him. But COVID.
So
But yeah.
I think that there's things that you can hear, see, and ingest that do give you inspiration, and I think that you find that and give you some different thought and ideas. And there's obviously business books and videos and no shortage of content everywhere and anywhere that can give you another way of looking at things. And sometimes it's muscle memory, like things that I was doing 10, 15 years ago that I see somebody doing now, and I'm like, shit, like that was a good idea back then. Why did I get away from that? And trying to get back into that habit. But like, it was Freakonomics, and it was talking about how somebody pulled their marketing budget and there was no direct impact to the business. And then there was, the CMO of, oh gosh, Procter and Gamble said that they pulled a lot of advertising and saw no, and so it was looking at it from a pure economics perspective, not a marketing perspective. And it was really interesting. And then the second one was Kevin Durant had on somebody that was an early founder in Rockefeller Records, and it was just a fascinating story of entrepreneurialism that I like to hear. Like I like to, I like to listen to that that story, I guess.
That's where I think that brings value. It may not, the one podcast that you're listening to that day may not bring any value at all, right? But I love watching documentaries like that or listening to podcasts like that, because when you need it, it's like you're filing all that information, right? You can pull from it.
Yeah, like I'll watch Netflix documentaries and things like that. What was the one with? Actually, Dr. Dre just had like a brain aneurysm.
I saw that.
But he said he's all right.
Have you heard how he's doing?
And then like Jimmy Levine, that one on about Apple. It was like on HBO. It was fantastic. I forget it's like I forget what it was. But anyway, do I have to sit there and read an ebook, or do I have to listen to a pod? Like watching documentaries about business and entrepreneurs is just as good as like if you're sitting down in the morning or throughout your day, wherever you find it from, I guess.
Yeah. So quick question before we wrap it up. Just because we're talking about
what time is me? I got a 2:30. Did I get a 2:30?
Well, it's 10. We've been on almost an hour. We've been on for 49 minutes. Clubhouse. And I know this isn't about goals or sabotaging or anything like that. Have you hopped on Clubhouse yet? Have you heard about it?
So I got my exclusive invite yesterday. Somebody wasted one of their Willy Wonka tickets on me.
That was nice.
Yeah, R.J. Thompson. He's been a longtime
Oh, did
friend.
he? Okay.
He built the first Do Yo website, and I put it out there on LinkedIn yesterday. Who was your one invite to?
Tanisha Wheeler. She
Well, I'm glad you gave it to Tanisha, not me, after all the goodwill I've
I
extended
don't know
over the
if you
years.
wanted it. I posted it on Facebook. I said the first person who wants the invite, comment. And it was up for a few hours and she commented. I don't know who's on it, who's not. I was figuring it out. I'm still figuring it out, but I will hop on, and I still listen to podcasts. I like the structure of podcasts. I've hopped on to that though in the morning sometimes when I'm going through things, and I'll listen to it, and I could see why it's gaining popularity. I have not created my own room yet and started a conversation yet. I've just quietly listened, but have you done anything yet?
I literally got an invite yesterday, so
Oh,
I accepted, and I think that the scarcity of the invite is adding to the interest in the platform, and it's an interesting idea that you just gave to me. Is not like the first comment, but like who wants to get invited to, who wants to be my plus one to this exclusive invite on this new social media platform. And then once that contest runs out in like a month, like, like what's the next trick? But
yeah.
I do think that that's the interesting facet right now. And then we'll kind of go from there. I haven't really dug, too much further into that. I'm not skeptical of new social media platforms as far as, like, I mean, I think that my skepticism kind of runs of like how Facebook will watch that and react to it.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and see what happens there. And I think that, I don't know, where are you at with, so yeah, Clubhouse is new. Um, tactically, whatever, like social media, I am actually preparing an email right now for a client that is, interested in like, they're a little bit all over the place, but they're talking about LinkedIn, and then they're talking about, somebody wants to create a Facebook page, and then maybe they want to manage a group. And I'm kind of like, level setting on, what the expectations are on a Facebook page right now versus, what you could do with a group versus you really should be focused on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Um, like especially if you're in sales, like I think that your immediate gains on um, on LinkedIn from if you're in sales or you run a business and you're not on LinkedIn, you're a complete idiot.
And we've had this conversation before. Maybe this is what we talk about next week, right? Is LinkedIn. The reason
And
I don't like LinkedIn, and I'm there, and I'll hop on every once in a while. I don't work LinkedIn the way I probably should work it. Most of my clients are on Facebook, and that's where they find me is on Facebook. But it's all a sales pitch. Everybody is just pitching you and not really building relationships. Everybody that I've built relationships on LinkedIn, I have on Facebook. I can't think of any that a relationship was created on LinkedIn. Now, that might be my fault,
we're
right?
getting ready to. We're coming up on the top of the hour. If there's some people that are out there in Facebook or LinkedIn land, you want to ask a question, put it in the chat. And if you want to see a subject covered in the future, let us know. Like,
Yeah.
we'd like to know that. Now, that all the things that you're saying, I completely get and I completely understand. And but that doesn't stop you from using the phone either or email either, which you get solicited on a consistent basis, right?
True.
Okay. The so and whether or not you use LinkedIn or not is irrelevant to me
Right.
because it helps me establish and accomplish my goals.
Right.
Just from a career in sales, just from a pure sales perspective, I just know that I'm 3 clicks away from anybody in the universe that I want to potentially have a conversation with.
Right. We all are.
Done.
We all are. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what platform, just the internet in itself.
It certainly does. Like, I guess you could make the argument that you could send a direct message on Facebook. But I don't think that I don't believe that you can get the same understanding about a person from a business perspective as you can on LinkedIn. So let's just say that I'm looking at the VP of marketing at X company. I could probably find them on Facebook. I don't know if I'm going to get where they work or not. It's obviously intrusive to the
True.
personal life.
Yeah, true.
But I do know on LinkedIn that even if they don't accept an invite from me and 6 months later I send them a message about, hey, let's talk, I can pick up the phone, or I can find their email address out just from them accepting a LinkedIn invite. Do you know anything about sales intel or seamless AI?
No.
That's a very interesting, and it has been for a while. It's a very interesting product or solution that we should bring on to, this conversation if we're going to kind of go down some of that route. Very interesting technology that's out there. But that aside, yeah, I just think that, like, so, again, like, you don't have to do anything on LinkedIn. You just have to use it as like a tool. Like, we used to run around, like, before pre-internet, and like go run in a hospital and like try and find the director of radiology. Like,
Right.
we would get arrested right now.
Yeah, true. True. No, I do agree that there's benefits to it. But I think, let's talk about this next time. Because we can go back and forth for a long time talking about LinkedIn.
And we
But
could also talk about the solicitations that you get on LinkedIn versus me.
yes, we can.
You're not alone. Like, there's oddly enough, there's like another individual that actually speaking coming up in the next few weeks. It's happened to her. And then, yeah, it's kind of rampant.
It happens to a lot of women. And I bet it happens to men too on there.
Hasn't happened to me, although my demographic following on Instagram is 60-40 women versus men.
Shocker. All right, Dennis, let's wrap this up. Everybody,
Okay.
if you guys do have a topic you want Dennis and I to talk about, put it in the comments. We will definitely talk about it. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. I had a blast. Dennis, I always like talking to you.
Had a blast. We're going to do it again next week.
Will.
Next Wednesday around the same time.
Yes. Yeah. Follow us on our social media with Dennis Schiraldi, Deanna Hins, and you'll see it pop up for next week. But let's do that, and I'll catch everybody later. Thank you, Dennis.
Cool. Thank you. Bye. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll see you.
Bye.